Back to the No Shots Fired podcast. This is episode 11, Adun, Toridas. And tonight, your valiant hosts, me, Valen, and my compatriot, Doc, will be walking you through, well, topic-wise, we don't have much, but we're just going to talk about a bunch of cool games that have been
pretty much
taking place.
Pretty good. Good.
I also need to figure out exactly why I'm getting a ton of feedback, which is really inhibiting my ability to talk.
You have volume on like the Twitch stream or anything?
Not sure. Okay, I don't have. How about this? Well, it's not affecting the podcast, so I'll just kind of keep talking and troubleshoot.
Okay.
So, again, we don't really have a topic this week. I'm sure we'll stumble upon one as we do, but I think we've got more than enough to talk about with the release of Zelda, with Mass Effect, Armageddon or Andromeda or whatever it is. I think Armageddon would probably be more fitting. Yeah, I remembered after I said Armageddon.
Reacting, yes.
Yeah,
it's been a crazy month or so.
I would love to hear kind of a long discourse. So anyway, we're just going to talk about some games. I'd love to hear a long discourse from you, Doc, because I haven't had the honor of playing the new Zelda game. But I would love to hear your thoughts, your impressions, what you've done in the apparently 65 hours you've played.
I put a few hours in, yes. Yeah, and I kept trying to think of how I wanted to try to put into context how I've been feeling about this game, because it just feels so good. Because I don't know, because a lot of people when it was first talked about, everyone's like, oh, just Skyrim with Zelda characters basically was the reductive way of talking about it. And after playing it, I the only thing I can kind of see in terms of similarities is just the world's really big, and you kind of get out and you can go wherever you want. But after that, you're meant to climb everything in Zelda, whereas in Skyrim you kind of glitch your way up to the.
It's not really a
mountains.
platformer.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas they've specifically designed a system to you see that mountain, go climb it. And if you've got enough stamina, you can figure out a path up there, you can get up there. But you have to, and then they've introduced all these systems that are really are pretty new to the Zelda franchise, at least in terms of regulating your temperature. You don't get hearts.
Regulating your temperature?
Yeah, so you go to the desert, you got to have heat resistant or clothing.
Cool shades.
That will help deal with that. If you go to Death Mountain, you've got to have burn resistant clothing because you're near a volcano. You go up into the snow, you've got to have cold resistant stuff. But you can also eat certain foods that'll give you those buffs. So cooking's a big part of this game because you don't get health drops from enemies or cutting grass or any of that sort of stuff anymore. It's all from food or sleeping. But you can cook food that'll give you extra hearts. So you can play the you can either put your these orbs you get into heart containers or stamina. It's like climbing requires stamina, running requires stamina, and you can increase that meter. So, with those certain foods you can cook, you could put it all into stamina and just say, oh, I'm just going to eat this stuff, and then I don't have to worry about having, extra hearts. So just the way these systems kind of come together and lets you kind of play however you really want to, is really fantastic. And Like a lot of the stuff I've been reading has been people saying, like, going into a situation saying, "Oh, I wonder if it'll let me do this," and the game totally does. So it's just, I don't know, really good.
Would you tell one of the stories of a situation where you went into that, like with that? I wonder if I can do this, or I wonder if this is going to happen. And you were.
Let's see, one of the more recent ones. There have been a few where I've basically set up so like there's these big troll-like enemies called High Noxes, and I was on Eventide Island, which is this island off the coast where you land. It takes away all your equipment, and you have to, it says, okay, in order to get your equipment back, you have to, get these 3 orbs to these 3 spots, and just scavenge whatever you can off the island. So it's a pretty cool kind of just little contained challenge in the game itself. And so, there's this big troll enemy that has one of those orbs on his chest that you have to try to get. And so what I tried to do was I snuck up to him, and I saw that his hand, he would kind of go and like scratch his belly a little bit. I was like, I wonder if I can get on his hand. And I did. And he so he propped me up onto his chest, and I was gonna try to grab the orb, but then I pressed the wrong button, and then he woke up and stopped me. But I think had I not messed up,
but you had the right idea.
I had the right idea, but then I ended up just finding a spot where I could roll bombs down to him and kill him. But so that's one thing. I don't know. I think. Like solve it. Like there's the shrines all throughout the world, which are kind of like very, very bite-sized dungeon puzzles, basically. Because there's only 4 major dungeons in the game, and even the dungeons are totally different from a typical Zelda dungeon. That there's very few actual enemies in. It's almost all puzzle.
Oh, really?
Puzzle solving.
I like that.
Yeah, just the quality of those puzzles is really good. And just kind of the number of different ways you feel like, some of them are pretty obvious that there's one major way to do it, but you always feel like there's going to be another way. I remember I saw a video of a guy there's these runes you get, which are your main abilities in the game, and one of them is stasis, which frees something for a certain amount of time, and any kinetic energy you impart into that object will stay in that object, and once you get released, it will go fly off in whatever direction you were hitting it.
Sure.
So someone did that to a boulder, and just pounded on it for a while, and then right before it disengaged, they hopped onto it, and they just flew across the world, and just. And then so there's these rafts in the game. That's how you can navigate the seas. But you there's Octoroks, which are a classic Zelda enemy, and when you kill them, they can drop these Octorok balloons, which you can tether to stuff and just send it flying. So you can tether it to bombs, you can tether it to weapons, and you can send those bombs over enemies and detonate them. But people have fastened them to these rafts and created airships that just are flying around the world in these rafts with these balloons on them.
That's incredible.
It just it has this feeling of like an endless kind of variety of ways you could. Really cool. Okay, I know like it just the way it works. It's kind of in retrospect made me very disappointed in Bethesda games. Bethesda games have that huge open world, right? And the stories I like the characters that are in that world, but like the systems just don't. And like people seem to
feels lacking, feels incomplete a lot of the time.
The jankiness and like the bugs that are just kind of everyone accepted as part of a Bethesda game because of the huge open world nature of it. They said, that's kind of the sacrifice you have to make. This kind of totally makes
proves that's not
an invalid excuse. So it'll be interesting to see how the reception of the next Bethesda game is going, if they don't start to solve some of these issues, because Nintendo just came in and just said, "Oh, this is how you do it," and boom, done. So,
Well, and for a long time, like you said, Bethesda was really the only company that was making anything close to resembling a good open world game. We have a very special guest, everyone.
Oh.
This is the world famous. You'll show up here. Here, actually, look, there you are.
That's
You're live
weird.
on the internet. Anybody in the world, you're forever here now.
Yep.
Do you want to? Because we record this and we post it on YouTube. So
Oh,
listen.
well, I will. Here, right, me and my towels. And
what's your casting name? You need a good casting
my
name.
casting. Hi, Dave.
hello.
How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
Good, good. Can you believe you have a 1-year-old now?
No, I cannot. Pretty crazy.
And so I'm wondering how you have any energy to be doing this.
Fortunately, he still goes to sleep pretty easy, so I've kind of
That's great.
But I did almost fall
That's
asleep on the
great.
couch about 45 minutes ago.
I was wondering if I was going to lose you to the couch. It just happened more than once.
And how's Amanda doing these days?
So she is passed out. But she's
Okay, so what are you guys just...
So what we're talking about right now, this is the 11th episode of our podcast in which we talk for about a half hour about various gaming topics. Tonight we're just going over the Zelda game that came out recently. And Doc was, I'm Val and that's Doc.
Oh, okay. Are we supposed to be using code names?
Yes, you've done not the best job. Right, we gotta.
Okay.
We are just that funny for anybody who happens to tune in, which is nobody. Don't worry, nobody's not watching us right now. But most of our ad revenue and viewers are in the YouTube, so that'll come later. So,
Oh, okay.
So rest assured.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so your topics are Zelda.
Zelda, and then they're remastering the. You remember Starcraft?
Absolutely, sure.
They're kind of relaunching that.
Okay, all right, great topics. I have a lot to add.
All
to
right,
those.
what do you think about the new? So what we were just talking about is the newest Zelda game. They just have a giant open world and just just seemingly endless possibilities for how if you want to creatively tackle different places. And we were comparing that to some of the other what they call open world games that we've played in the past. And this is the first time like a major gaming company has kind of released a signature open world game, a game with like a giant map where you can go explore and do it in a bunch of places. And we're talking about how everybody has been just raving about how good a job Nintendo has done with this Zelda open world game and how it really highlights a lot of the deficiencies that some other open world games have had in the past. Like one of the traits of previous open world games a lot of people just kind of accept is there'll be a lot of like kind of just hidden bugs and stuff because again you've got this huge world that people try to program and so you'll end up getting like limited in how you can tackle certain little adventures or you just run into an area that wasn't really very well designed or somebody apparently they didn't test very well. And so part of the give and take with the whole open world concept in the past has been you get to explore and have this giant, awesome space to kind of move around in, but then you're going to accept kind of incomplete in-game systems. But now with Zelda, that again just came out a few weeks ago, has been just, have you even heard any major complaints about it in terms of how the game functions
some
or
people don't
running
like
into issues?
the weapon degradation. So you do like all your weapons will break eventually, and you just have to pick up new ones. But and that I've kind of found that that's actually encouraged me to use different stuff. Typically, in plenty of other games, you find your favorite weapon, you stick with it. Can't really do that.
Right.
So And the different weapon types, the spears, the claymores, the broads, they all feel different enough that in different situations, like, oh, I want to pull out my spear guy. But I've enjoyed that part of it. Some people but there are like a few like UI issues, like the menuing, like it'd be a little bit faster if you're able to drop weapons like from whenever you wanted to, not having to go into a menu like shields and
Okay.
So little optimizations, but other than that, I haven't heard any, or at least not any ones I'm willing to entertain as legitimate.
So was the weapon degradation a purposeful design so that to encourage users to try different weapons, or is it something you think is just faulty?
I think it's definitely a purposeful choice because it's something they haven't done before, and I think part of the interesting part of this game is like all the enemies have weapons, so you always want to you're like, oh, maybe that enemy has a cool weapon, I'm going to go check that out. So that's kind of another kind of carrot, to try to to continue to explore the world, is to find what different weapons are there, because they can be anywhere. But, I found a really cool sword called the Edge of Duality, which is a great name for a sword.
It's really good.
Just in a random
Edge of Duality.
in a random shrine somewhere. So I think it takes getting used to, because people will come into a Zelda game in particular. They come into with a certain set of expectations at least in terms of the last 5-6 games, how that game's going to play and how that structure is going to be, and this pretty much throws most of that out. But I think it keeps the core of what people like about Zelda, which is exploration and a world that feels lived in, and just it feels like a realized world, I guess, is how I would. So.
Okay.
A lot of these. Oh, you signing off? Oh, I thought you were.
No, I had earphone degradation.
You gotta be careful. And so, for example, of like a system in a game that wasn't intentionally designed a certain way and was just kind of poorly done, there's this series called Fallout, which is like a post-apocalyptic series, and it's by a different studio. Who does what I was talking about? They do most of the open world games. The studio is called Bethesda, and they introduced a new system in their latest Fallout, their latest post-apocalyptic game. The system where you could like build structures within certain towns.
Oh no! Yeah.
And yeah, I really liked the whole building concept, but
the idea was good.
The idea was good. The idea was cool, like, because you would go into these towns and there's just like some random people and they need help, so you build them defenses and walls and stuff. But then, like, just really simple stuff, like you couldn't really get the fences to like line up, or like you'd start building a fence, and if the ground started dropping away, the fence would be built out and like just kind of suspended in air. Like you'd have like a white picket fence that's just going out
really
forever.
Triggered any OCD you might have in trying to like line up.
Yeah, if you wanted anything to, yeah, exactly. So I spent a long time, and they introduced this kind of cool concept of defending settlements and building defenses and stuff, but they didn't really do much with it. They didn't really make it important in any way. Mm-hmm. And if the settlements got attacked by random bad guys, it didn't really matter if it's just like really poorly done.
Really.
No real consequences. The whole battle system, even if you built your townspeople like walls and little bunkers and stuff, they'd still just run out and run straight at the bad guys, and the bad guys would run straight at them, and nobody has any concept of personal safety or it's just a bunch of ridiculous stuff like that kind of anything that kind of breaks that fourth wall for me of like, oh, I'm in this world you've created, or then all of a sudden you're like, well, this is dumb. I don't feel like I'm really.
So some degree of that can be like funny, and I can appreciate it to some degree. But at a certain point, it's just like, okay, it just isn't as well put together as. And I'm not pretending it's easy, but seeing it actually done to this degree has definitely increased my expectations. which is probably a mistake because I don't think
Yeah, so
suddenly
start doing better.
Yeah, well, turn around on that because I'm pretty sure Fallout 4 sold just fine. So,
Are they a newer, smaller company or
Bethesda? No, they're very big. They're one of the they would be what's called like a I don't know, like a AAA gaming studio or one of these studios with a huge budget.
They used to be small.
A lot of
they've definitely amped it up in the past a couple of years.
okay?
Yeah, but yeah, there's a drawback. There's a lot of benefits to big companies in that they will a lot of resources to do cool things, but then they aren't necessarily incentivized to take a lot of big risks, and even to the extent of like changing for the better some of like these little quirks in their game that aren't working out, little bugs. They're not necessarily incentivized to change things up a lot. From like they'll take one franchise, like the Fallout franchise. There's like a 1, a 2, a 3, 4, and then eventually there's gonna be a 5, 6, whatever. They'll have to keep adding on. They're not necessarily incentivized when they have like this premier title that a lot of people are gonna go buy anyway, to do what they did like in Zelda, and they took a bunch of different risks. They threw out a lot of old stuff that people were expecting, and there's a big risk to that because you're gonna sell X number of copies almost no matter what, and if you kind of just stick to your tried and true formula,
it'll get
even if things need improving.
Panned in terms of critical reception, but it will not hurt your sales, I don't think. So, yeah, definitely true.
So why is it popular if it has faults in it, like people? I mean, that things just don't make sense.
That's a good question. So they do a lot of things well, though, right?
It's a balance because like the exploring that
they
world
still have
is
this
a lot of
giant
fun. Like the character, there's a lot of interesting characters, a lot of interesting quests to go on. So you can like I ignored that base building after I realized it was not gonna, and you can
right. So we just didn't.
So, and it's just
okay.
There aren't before Zelda came out, there weren't too many games that did what Bethesda did. So if you wanted to get that feeling, you kind of that's what you kind of had to play to get. And accept those, those bugs and that sort of stuff, which, it's not that every 5 steps you'd fall through the world or something like that, but it's just...
Right. Yeah. It's not that bad. It's more like little things like, if you were playing a game, like even if you would be a great, say you could like just jump into a game with, this is one thing that I think is really interesting about like game designers, what they'll do, especially in Zelda they did this, but they like to take the concept of something like you just being thrown into the world and not given a lot of. Most of these games have pretty robust like tutorial systems and try to guide you and stuff. But if you're thrown into a world and you don't have anything other than like some sort of visual stimulus, how do you get people to go certain directions or investigate certain things, or like how do you get people to feel like they're part of the world and then to go investigate certain parts of that world? And so like what they did with Zelda, I believe, Doc, that you told me about, is they kind of started in the center and they started building outward, and they're like, all right, we're going to put a mountain here that when we walk down this valley, you can see this mountain and there's something on top of it. And then they make it so that like you're like, I wonder if I can actually get up there and see that. Because again, a lot of us are used to is with like open world games or like limitations, you'll see something in the distance, you'll see something that's awesome, but you can't necessarily get to that. Or like these Bethesda games are really good, but then you'll just like learn to stay away from certain things that don't work well. Maybe it's, for example, one of the things that in one of their other series where you're like this knight, one of the things that can be kind of buggy is when you get like you can have followers. So I have like my sword buddy and I have a dog following me around. But like what can happen, I learned, is that if you suddenly have to run away, which I tend to do, and you're like on a horse and you got your buddy next to you, you have your dog next to you, and you're on a horse, and like I panic and I run off a cliff, and they weren't really prepared for what would happen when a dog is trying to follow me and my sword buddy is trying to follow me, and the horse doesn't really have an animation for falling through the air, so you're falling for a second on the horse and you're still trying to gallop, then all of a sudden you're in a river and then the horse is kind of somewhere else and you're somewhere and your dog is like sprinting down the mountain wildly, and your sword buddy is like running up against a rock because he's trying to get to where you are, and the horse is still in the river, and all of a sudden everything's just like you can't collect your crew anymore because they're all broken all over the place. So like you have to learn like, all right, when I've got my buddies with me, I just can't really
Can't jump off cliffs.
right. That's not a viable escape route, apparently. So there's just certain things in the game you just learn to avoid, as opposed to like ideal game situation. Be kind of like it is. A lot of people say about Zelda is if you see something, you can go like explore it, as opposed to just like learning the little quirks of the game that you try to stay away from to make the whole experience like still very enriching.
And it's very good at rewarding that exploration. So there's almost I've rarely gotten somewhere and been like, oh, there's nothing here. And now on the few that there is nothing here, I look out and go, oh, this is a sweet view of the entire world. I'm going to snap a screenshot. Because it looks really good.
Do you have any screenshots that you could like put up?
Well, no, because it's on this thing. But
Dang.
Hey here.
Can you like transfer it and
Try to.
oh,
There's one
that is neat that
that will show up eventually.
1 second. We're on the tape delay, so it'll Wow, that's. Can you see that?
Yeah,
It's pretty picturesque.
that really is.
So
I love that.
The art style goes into that, but and there's always just like little things, and there's like little puzzles throughout, on top of those mountains and stuff. So there's always like little things to do that make it feel like you've accomplished something. I think is a big
Okay, so lots of good trade-offs for the.
And that's like a key element of a well-designed game is incentivizing people to explore the different things you put into the game, and then rewarding the time that somebody spent doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's usually where you have the negative feedback in a game is somebody spends a lot of time, like I did, building a base for my people, Fallout, and then nothing happens, even though I spent an hour very obsessively lining up my fence, so it didn't look like it was floating in space. But there's
certainly.
It was long, yeah. I had a beautiful place that people were very happy about.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, there was, again, it's just like that base still bothers me. I had to wall it all off, but it was really hard to do. It just took so long.
Let it go, Evan. Let it go. All right. Oh, sorry. Doc.
I'm down.
Sorry, Doc. I gave away everything.
We've done that plenty of times ourselves, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not like we.
I will sign off and let you guys have at it. Take care.
Thank you.
Talking to you though.
Give a big hand, everybody in chat, to our guest star. Who? What was your casting name again? You have okay. Jane Doe, everyone. Jane Doe. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to explore with Zelda, or do you want to talk about Starcraft?
I probably after I beat it, I think, but it's just a lot of rambling.
Okay. Well, we can obviously come back to that. I also want to kind of. I know it's not fair for us to probably talk about Mass Effect Armageddon since we've combined for.
I've played 20 minutes.
Maybe I was gonna say I think we've combined for about an hour. But I think we should comment anyway, because there are things that I know for me I'm just gonna treat it like a B movie. It's just a B movie. That's you just have to go into it knowing that your father looks absolutely ridiculous and none of the animations are that good and everything just feels a little half-assed.
And which is just because you haven't played a Mass Effect, right? So
I haven't.
So you don't. Yeah. So there's no. It's just So it's someone So I've played all three of them, and just having to think that is just a real bummer because that series, those 3 games are just so good, and they're so good because like it wasn't the animations weren't great. Like character always looked a little
Sure.
goofy, but the characters themselves were fantastic. The story was fantastic, and just that universe was something that I was ready to go back into, and they seemed to have a good impetus to do so in saying, okay, we're in a totally different galaxy, but it's just
Right.
It feels like something that they were like, oh, we have to get this out before Q1 is over. Let's just
go.
And that's a bummer. And I've heard people, I've heard varying reports of people saying, I'm still enjoying it, and so the story is resonating with some people, so I'm hopeful that that's the case for me. But the people, sites I read and stuff, and people that I know are big Mass Effect fans have been pretty disappointed to this point, which is a big
combat feels pretty good. I really dislike auto cover just as a concept.
Yeah, because
but I don't know.
That doesn't work.
Well, so here's one thing it's immediately done. So combat is, I would say, pretty good. It feels smooth, looks cool, it handles really well. But if I'm going to play a game, which I like to do, on the hardest setting, this one has like an insane setting, which I wouldn't play on. But there's a second hardest one where I was dying pretty easily to people I don't think you're supposed to be dying to.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to play it, if you're going to give me a hard setting, then you have to give me the tools to survive in that setting. And things like auto cover, if they don't work well, which something like auto cover almost never does work well enough. Like you can't. You got to give me the tools to survive in your harder difficulty.
That's a death where it's not your fault. You can accept deaths that are not, that you feel like, oh, I learned, that was my fault, or I at least learned something about what I need to do.
Right, but if I run up to a rock and I take cover like I wanted to, and then I pop out and I start shooting, but then for some reason my guy has decided he's not in cover anymore, and now I'm just,
just standing out in the middle of nowhere. So,
fairly frustrating.
Definitely gonna have to try to put more time into that game. I'm trying to figure out when that's gonna be. There's some the reviews for Persona.
Another thing I don't like
started dropping today, and they are good.
I'm sure, since that game's been
and almost
in production for
said, it'll take about 100 hours, but it's. I was like, oh boy.
100 hours, good lord. That's almost an anachronism anymore as a game, like a 100-hour game.
Yeah, and
I feel like.
Yeah, and I'm well on my way to that in Zelda and back to back.
I do hope that I have heard the sales figure for the Switch and Zelda are very good, but I like to see a well done, completed effort. Like when a company, like to me, feels like anymore, the Zelda output is above and beyond like the industry status quo. I feel like the status quo is kind of dropped anymore, even for AAA gaming companies. People don't necessarily release something that pushes a lot of boundaries or is a polished, finished product. And I like to see somebody like Nintendo really, hopefully, challenge everyone else to be better.
Yeah, I'd say hopefully. I mean, this device, it's a slick device. So,
but yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, so I'm hoping it does. It's able to kind of kick that up. We'll see. But yeah, let's say that. Yeah, Persona 5. And then I think the only other thing I wanted to talk about was that Blizzard decided to say, hey, we're gonna throw StarCraft back out there, which is pretty cool. But I kind of, what was kind of funny, I don't know how it probably won't show up well on the stream, but so they released this trailer that's showing StarCraft and Brood War, and they're like, okay, remastered, and They say 4K HD graphics. All right, hit me with it.
Yeah, let's see them.
And they kind of do the old thing, and they swipe. And it took me 3 or 4 watchings of this to go. Okay. Now, this is not a complaint. I don't want to say this to sound like a complaint, because I think the original StarCraft still looks. Has a very distinct style.
I can see,
and I like how it looks. But typically, when you hear remaster, like I think of those old adventure games that have been updated quite a bit, and the original StarCraft coming on 20 years, right? 97, 98?
How do I accidentally I don't know if you can see it on your end, but I accidentally I was curious what one spicy memer had been saying. So I accidentally
Nothing of note.
I know, but I wanted to make his messages go away again, and I feel like I made them come back, and I didn't mean
I can't see him. If you click on him, it'll show.
Okay, that's all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
I didn't want. Yeah.
But so that's an interesting, and I'll be very interested to see how that does, because the big part of this that they made it very clear was that the gameplay is pretty much unaltered. So there were all these little tricks and things that were developed by the pro scene of StarCraft back in the day that created this game with an incredibly high skill ceiling that was fantastic to watch. A lot of this in terms of the professional thing, I think they're doing it for Korean esports, I guess, because Brood War still has a scene in Korea, and
right.
And StarCraft 2 kind of failed to sustain that growth that they had initially when it came out. So it'll be interesting. I hope that a scene develops around it, because I'd love to watch.
I wonder why that is with StarCraft 2.
Well, StarCraft 2, when it first came out, was huge in terms of the competitive esports scene. But I think
right.
Just things like Dota 2, things like League of Legends, things like Counter-Strike, have just taken a lot of that, mind share, and a lot of those eyes. There's still StarCraft 2 tournaments. There's still, tens of thousands of people watching them. But it's not the esport anymore like it was in 2000 and that sort of stuff. Which is fine. I've fallen off watching it. Kind of meaning to get
That's
back
true.
Because I still maintain that StarCraft is the most skill based at that at that high a level. The people who are really good at that game, I'm more impressed with that than I am anybody else. It's just the strategy you have to do both on a macro and micro level.
The understanding of timing in every map, and it's insane.
And it's just you out there. You don't have a team to rely on, that sort of stuff.
Right.
Those other esports aren't entertaining. It's just the skill I see in StarCraft I always appreciate. Well, hopefully it's good. That'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
I've been asking for that for a long time, so we'll see.
We'll see. That will be interesting how the world reacts. Well, I feel like that's probably a fairly lengthy broadcast we just did.
Oh, we've been gone for a little bit. So coming back, had some stuff to talk about.
Excellent guest member in chat, really spiced things up there briefly, and
as their username.
I'm not really surprised. I feel like not that it happens a whole lot, but when people stop by, we should guess in advance whether or not they're going to be a terrible person or not. And it would be.
This one was fairly obvious. But yeah, so.
You know things. On that note, chat was cleared by a moderator. I did. On that note, maybe we should sign off with my successful usage of technology. Tell everyone tell everyone a special.
See, this week I'm gonna try. I may look at the switch up here, streaming or something, or maybe I'll finally start playing some Mass Effect. But when Persona comes out next week, I think that's the game I'm gonna stream for sure. coming on an adventure in the most stylish game you could ever want. Join me in Persona 5. Val,
I
do you
would
have
like
any
to
plans?
actually. I don't probably get. Okay, so I booted up one more short story. I booted up Dishonored 2 for the first time.
Oh, you love Dishonored.
I'm very excited about that. I went through the tutorial, and my boy, what's his name, assassin guy from the first one, Corvo, yes, Corvo Atano. My boy, he all old now. His little girl, the girl I saved in the first one, little Emily, she all grown up. She the queen, empress, whatever. So this is as far as I got. Because, let me tell you, alright, so I knew this was going to happen too. I'm glad I knew it was going to happen, because if I didn't know it was going to happen, I would have been even more stressed out. But in a very short amount of time, they built me up to this point where I like both characters. I like Emily, I like Corvo. Obviously, I like Corvo from the first one, but, you know, gosh dang it, Emily, I raised her. You know, she had no mother. Her mother was assassinated. I raised her, I'm her father. I taught her all of the ways of the assassins and sneaking and stuff. Oh, pro tip. If you ever want to sneak, crouch, and then it's a lot harder for people to see you. So in any, hit the, just crouch, and then you're good. Anyway, it's the anniversary of the Empress's murder. We're having a nice little gala. These bastards from the Duke of Somewhere's place show up. First we think they're going to give us like gifts or whatever. No, turns out they have a pretender to the throne.
Oh no.
Apparently, I know, right? Right? This lady shows up saying she was the Empress's older sister, but that for various reasons she had been in hiding or whatever, didn't want the throne back then, but now she wants it. We're getting attacked. All of a sudden, yeah, we're getting attacked. My boy Corvo doing some work because he can like flash around and stuff because he's got powers of the something other world. I can't remember what those are called. He's flashing around, killing some people. He tries to stab this lady. This lady's got some sort of black magic too. She steals his powers. Corvo and Emily back to back. And then the game freezes with them surrounded by enemies and says, "Choose who you want to play." And I freaked out. I'm like, I don't want to be Corvo and have Emily get captured. I don't want to be Emily, have Corvo be, like it's a big choice. So I panicked. I turned the game off, and I haven't touched it again. So.
Now I think,
Yeah.
from what I remember reading about this, I think Emily does have some different powers. So maybe if you want to, I think, or like,
You can-
might
yeah.
have like, I assume he has some new stuff as well. It's probably a lot of the same.
Probably the classic
So,
abilities from
yeah,
the
so I
first
guess
one.
if you want to different options, which is nice. But yes, I can see that being a nerve-wracking choice.
No, it truly was. But it's a good way to encourage people to play through it more than once. So
Definitely.
I'll be picking that up at some point this upcoming week.
Excellent.
You know, it would be fun if you are going to stream Mass Effect. We should, you should do that because I would like to play it with you, and then we can both like make fun of the dialogue and choose what to do in the game and stuff. I think that would be an enjoyable way
New Earth. Come on, people.
to play.
Come on, guys.
Yeah. On that note, sign off for real.
All right. Peace, everybody.